And we are back, and we just finished watching 2017's I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore, rated TV MA, and it clocks in at 1 hour and 33 minutes. This is currently streaming on Netflix. This was written and directed by Macon Blair and stars Melanie Lynskey as Ruth, a woman who I guess has just had enough of being treated poorly. She comes home from her shift at, I guess, the hospital. She's like a nurse, and she finds out that she's been burglared, and she tries to, well, she reports it to the police first and then tries to do something about it because she feels like she's not getting it anywhere with the police. And she meets up with a neighbor, a nearby neighbor, Tony, played by Elijah Wood, who is probably as awkward as her, maybe even a little bit more.
Yeah, he's sort of like a, I guess he's religious, but he's also maybe antisocial in that he's very focused to the point where he doesn't even notice where his dog's taking a crap. Mm-hmm. And
right, that's how
he's very into like martial arts and
metal music,
heavy metal, and working out in his backyard.
He's a weird little dude.
Playing with his nunchucks and his morning star.
He's a weird little dude.
And his Chinese stars. Yeah. He's a strange rat tail hanging on the back of his head.
But really fun characters and really well done. Kudos to both lead actors. They did a really good job of like representing these very strange, very awkward, yet kind of lovable people. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I would want to be friends with Ruth and Tony.
I mean, her main thing was she's used to sort of being walked upon. She's used to being a doormat. And this burglary seems to have
ignited something in
her. I don't know if it had anything to do with the medication that she was no longer able to take. They gave like some hints at that. I mean, they mentioned what the medications were. I don't know what they're for. I don't know if they're for some sort of emotional thing. Who knows?
Or depression.
Or something like that. You could tell she definitely is dealing with some kind of depression because she says more than once that she doesn't really like understand like what she's doing here, what her life is. Right. Her life seems very mundane, very empty. She lives in that house all by herself.
Right.
She goes to that bar, reads a book.
She doesn't really seem to have many friends. I don't know if that's her sister or her friend, that one woman.
I got the impression it was her sister. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's not really much going on in her life, and there just doesn't seem to be any prospects until this thing happens. Yeah. And it's like something out of the norm, something that's breaking her out of this loop that she's in. Mm-hmm. And
I got the impression that the thing that set her off was that she alludes to this a few times, the whole whoever it was came into my home kind of, and she felt very vulnerable and very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Sort of like violated.
Yes, yeah. Yes. And I think the thing that set her off, at least in my opinion or my interpretation of the story, was that they took her grandmother's silverware. That seemed to be that. I mean, she was glad to get her laptop back, but that felt very replaceable. And I forgot what was the other thing. There was 3 things I think she mentioned. Oh, the medicine, which also replaceable. But I feel like the grandmother's flatware
she even says it's irreplaceable, and right. That's the only thing that like sparks some sort of emotional chord. Like when she thinks about the silverware, she finds the silverware, she actually has that sort of like flashback of memory,
right,
of her grandmother.
And her, because it looked like it was like a little kid with her, and they're laughing, and it seemed happy.
Yeah,
but it also was very rooted in memory, the way it's filmed. It's like
it's like an old home movie almost. Yeah. And then she finds an ally in Tony, who initially she
is creeped out by him a little.
Well, not just that, but I think that's like the first sort of foray into standing up for herself.
Right.
She actually confronts him about the dog pooping on the lawn.
Right.
And
he apologizes.
The response is good. He apologizes for it. And then when she goes to see him, sort of accidentally, she's just basically going around the neighborhood asking people if they saw anybody suspicious on that day. And she runs into Tony again in his backyard. and he.
I guess because she'd already had that encounter with him,
Yeah.
she felt comfortable enough to go to him and say, "Oh, this happened to me," and his reaction was like, "God damn it!" Like,
yeah, this is
unacceptable.
affects us all. He says,
right?
And
Which in a way is true, because I mean, if you think about it, like if one neighbor gets burglared, then chances are more people in the neighborhood will suffer. It was interesting when she does the police report, right? And that cop, the lead cop, is basically like, well, you kind of did this to yourself by leaving the door open.
Yeah.
And
you made yourself a victim, basically.
Exactly. And he wasn't very sympathetic to her. And she was like, not making excuses, but it was like she was like paralyzed. I don't remember. I think I did. Like in that moment, it seemed like she lost steam because now somebody is questioning her, right?
Well, I think that was part of the whole thing of her being a doormat. Mm-hmm. Her moving beyond that, because she goes in her backyard, she sees where the broken bulb is. She looks underneath the broken bulb, finds the footprint. Right. She makes the plaster cast of the footprint.
Right.
She's got like a purpose in her life now, other than work, bar,
go home.
Work, bar, home. Same thing every day. And now she's got like this, basically a mission.
Yeah.
And finally, they get the first clue that leads to her asking Tony for help.
And him agreeing, right? So now she has an ally. Not only does she have a purpose, but she has an ally.
She has an ally who's very well suited to it. I mean, Tony is brave.
Yeah. In his own way. I mean, I think he's awkward.
He's awkward, but he's not going to let the norms of society stop him from doing stuff to the point where it's just like, I'm going to walk up to that person's house with a Morning Star in my hand. I mean, nobody walks around with a Morning Star.
I mean, on their first mission together, he does turn to her and say, I won't let anything happen to you.
Yeah.
Which I thought was very sweet.
Yeah.
Very sweet.
For him, it's sort of like, this is it. This is the chance.
It's go time.
Yeah. It's like, I've been preparing for this my entire life. This is what I've been waiting for. A quest.
Yes.
And that's basically what it was, a quest. And the thing I find funny about this movie is the way it's advertised, the way it feels in the beginning. I did not expect it to go the way it went.
No, because
it gets pretty serious.
Yes.
There.
But it's funny because you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. The trailer sort of does the movie a disservice.
The trailer makes it feel like this is just a comedy about very awkward people.
Right, like a very dark comedy.
Yeah.
And it's not that. I mean, there are shades of that, yes, but it's more than that. And I think that I agree with you. I hate when movies aren't properly, well, I don't want to say properly labeled, but
well, I didn't like for this I didn't really mind it because one, I'm not turned off by that sort of level of violence and whatnot. I like seeing a bit of a twist. Yeah. In some ways, this sort of made me. It felt a little bit like Riders of Justice.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
And that Riders of Justice, you see the advertisements for it or the trailers for it that I was witness to. And it's just like you're thinking, oh, Mads Mikkelsen is going to kill a bunch of terrorists for murdering his family.
Yeah, and it's not that at all.
It's not that at all.
Yeah, it's a family drama.
It's
if
a
anything.
family drama. Yeah. It's about finding your family or making a new family.
Yeah,
and
very awkward people
just
coming together.
Broken, awkward people, and this has that in common.
Yeah,
and that she basically sort of like. I don't know if say a family, but she finds companionship she
finds her person
in this other awkward person.
Yeah.
And they're on this mission. This mission unites them and brings them together. So it feels very earned. It feels natural. And even though it was like, it's a little quirky in the beginning, and then suddenly you're veering into scenes where people get their fingers blown off and stuff like that. It gets pretty violent.
Yeah.
People die.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it was still and again, kudos to the two leads. I mean, even though they're playing like very socially awkward people, they had really good chemistry together, I think.
Yeah.
Which is nice to see, but also the added layer, because now you're playing a depressed person. You're playing someone who's socially awkward, who's socially inept, right? So you have all these nuances to their performances, and it came out beautifully, I think. Both Melanie and Elijah did such an amazing job on this, and it's very subtle. It's very, very subtle. And I think that as the story progresses, you see how even when he's disappointed by her, he still comes for her.
Yeah.
Because, again, she's his person, kind of. They found each other in a way. So in a way, I'm assuming at the end it's romantic. It's now turned into a romantic relationship. I don't know, because a lot of that is left up in the air.
It's kind of left up in the air, but it feels like that.
Right, yes. You know? And it feels kind of like what you said. It feels earned. It feels like they took this journey together. And of course, the natural progression of that is now this other thing. Mm-hmm. So, and then the way the story ends. And it seemed like even with all of this craziness that happened in their kind of life story journey, at the end, it almost felt hopeful.
Yeah, like I wasn't there. There's parts in the film where you think that she's seriously suicidal.
Yes.
And at the end of it all, I didn't feel like that. Like
no.
When she looks back,
she turns a corner, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. When she looks back at him, you could see that it's sort of like this in her mind. She's like, okay, this is good.
Yes, this is where I'm supposed to be. Everything's progressing well. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not the same mundane thing, because now he's in her life. So now it's different.
There's something else. It's not just an endless loop of just.
And I think also this journey taught her to kind of fight for herself.
Exactly. Yeah. By the end of it, she's definitely a more forceful person. Even throughout the movie, you see like the little hints, like she's not letting people cut her in line.
Yes, and she's louder.
She's confronting people.
Yes.
She's being louder. She says,
I just don't want people to be assholes.
I just don't want people to be assholes.
Yeah.
And it would be lovely if the world was full of people who didn't want to be assholes.
Yes.
And weren't allowed to be assholes.
Yeah.
But
did you have a favorite character?
Ruth.
Yeah.
Ruth
is the MVP
she is
in
the
this.
driver of this movie. She definitely, it's interesting to see her character growth throughout the whole thing, seeing her stand up, seeing her become so capable.
Yes. She probably, if everything is in hindsight, right? I bet at the beginning of that film, if somebody had said to her, by the end of this journey, you are going to be a badass, she would have been like, what?
Yeah. The guy who made it, did he just appear in Green Room, or did he also make that movie?
No, he's just in it.
Who did Green Room?
Oh God, what's his name? He's the same guy that did Blue Ruin.
Blue Ruin, yeah.
1 second. I'm sure there are people out there that are yelling the answers at us, and I can't. Oh, was that really that long ago? It was written and directed by Jeremy Saulnier.
He did Green Room and
Blue Ruin. Yeah.
And this guy, I guess he must be friends.
Macon
with that
Blair
guy.
was the guy who kind of ran the bar.
Yeah, I know.
And he comes out alive at the end.
Wasn't he also the main protagonist in Blue Ruin?
He was the main protagonist in Blue Ruin. Yes.
Yeah. Because I all these films take place in that same world to me.
Kind of, I could see that.
That's sort of like I don't know if it's like Portland or something or whatever.
Yeah, there's definitely like an Oregon-ish feel to it.
There's a definite Oregon-ish feel to the whole thing. Like the 90s never ended.
Yeah, and I think there are shots of like the area where it seemed very Portland-esque, I guess, or Oregon-ish.
Yeah, especially at the end. I mean, they're running through these old woods and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, it felt like that. Like, I mean, at the end of was that even like maybe the same house at the end of Green Room?
It could have been. It could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry that we slept on this. I mean, it was something that we'd been meaning to watch for a long, long time, and I don't know why we didn't. But I'm glad we finally got here, because that was a really good watch experience. It's not a long film. It's only an hour and 33 minutes. But from where it starts to where it ends, it's quite the journey. And I think, again, kind of what you said about how it was interesting to see her story arc, because she definitely goes on that hero's journey, right? And by the end of the film, she's a completely more rounded, different person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the better. Absolutely.
For the better, yeah.
So, yeah.
Really great performances, even by the smaller characters, or not even smaller characters, but with the characters with the smaller parts. I think everybody did a really...
he just was a total scumbag.
Yeah, Marshall and Chrissy.
They were all good. Jane Levy was unhinged throughout it. Yeah. She was good. Yeah, great job.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this film a lot.
Did you have a favorite scene? I mean, it's an older movie, so I don't feel like we're spoiling anything.
Favorite scene is for the kids. Yeah, that's a kid question.
I think one of my favorite scenes is, I mean, there's a lot of things that were very well done, and the dialogue is very great in this. But one of my favorite scenes was when Tony comes to the rescue.
Yeah,
not just one time, more than once, when she got her fingers. And he comes to her defense, and then towards the end as well. And he's always like very matter of fact. He's like explaining. He's like, "Yeah, you plant your leg, and you gain so much power." Oh yeah, it's really impressive when it's done right. Yeah, I love that line when he's talking to her. She's like, you can see
this guy has like read a lot of crap on the internet.
Yeah, I'm very pleasantly surprised by this. It was way better than I thought it would be. I'm glad we finally watched it.
What would you give it?
I'm going to give it an 8.5.
Yeah, I'd give it an 8.
An 8, yeah. I think from where it starts to where it ends, it's really well done. The actors are all really great. The script writing in this is very strong. The scenery, the story itself, I think it really flowed nicely and was... It just, I mean, it kept you... It's funny because when we started the film, I think you were actually falling asleep.
No, I was falling asleep looking for something on Netflix or HBO Max. Seriously, we
did a lot of scrolling.
Searching for movies is just a drag.
Yeah.
Oh, woe is us.
Yes.
We have this wealth of choices. I mean, searching is such a burden.
Not to get off on a tangent, but what the hell is going on, Hulu? I don't know what is going on with your interface or your selection. I feel like they had better movies. I don't know what's going on. Or maybe I just didn't look enough.
Maybe we just watched all the good ones, and now there's just nothing but like Lifetime.
I doubt we've watched all the good stuff. There's
like
still so... I mean, we still have so much in our stuff sections on all of the streamers that we have.
Yeah. I know, we just weren't in the... I mean, seriously, 90% of the stuff on our Hulu My Stuff is like horror films.
Yeah.
And we just weren't... I don't think we were in the mood for it.
I mean, I'm always in the mood for it. I just was like, the kids are still up, especially Olive, and I just didn't know how gruesome the horror was going to be. So I was like, you know what? Let's just leave that for another time when these children are asleep. All right, so... 8.5. I think absolutely. If you have not seen it, go on over to Netflix and go check out I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore. From 2017, rated TVMA for, I guess, some...
I think one of the labels was gore.
Violence,
violence and language.
Yeah, that's about right. I think this is tagged as a comedy crime drama, which I think, yes, it fits all three bills. Yeah. Again, an hour and 33 minutes. Not a long film.
No.
I think it's a really wise investment of time. Absolutely. If you haven't checked it out, please go on over to Netflix and check out Macon Blair. Blah, blah, blah. Go to Netflix and check out Macon Blair's I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore. Yeah, it was really, really good. Surprisingly, it was way better than I thought it would be.
Yeah. It always looked interesting to me, but I was genuinely surprised.
Yeah. And what a treat afterwards. Like when we were done watching it, I was like, oh, I'm sad that we slept on this for so long, but I'm glad we finally belted it out. All right, that's it from us, and we will bid you all a good night.